Hello everyone and welcome to the WGL EU Week 3, Day 2, of course, Season 1 of the 2015 and 2016 season. Oliver Maxfield is joining me as always here on the desk, mate, and it's been an incredible week, last 3 weeks of games. Now we're starting to see how things are shaping up in terms of teams and where they're at. What are your impressions on how things are shaping up so far?
It's been really interesting. I mean, usually in the previous season, we've always had like maybe 2, 3 or 4 teams that have kind of shown themselves early on to be like kind of the late runners, the ones below in the league table. But this season, I think everyone's really, up there playing very well. Even ASAP, they had that game against Rocks, which they played extraordinarily well. And I think every team's got a chance to take some points here. All
right, so it's a quick recap of Tuesday's matches here. And it all started off with Ding with a very strong game against Strong Siema.
Yeah, Ding really played well. They were quite a few close matches there, but at the end of the day, Ding just showed themselves to be 5 to 10% better than Strong. So impressive round for them for sure.
Now, even more interesting, of course, is that second game of the day, which we tipped as definitely a blockbuster, definitely one to watch. Virtus Pro utterly outclassed by Synergy.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, seriously, quoting Breakneck, one of the players from Virtus Pro, he said, Stalker's team is not bad, which is high praise from Virtus Pro, as we know. But yeah, better positional play, aggressive, and truly an extraordinary game. And Virtus Pro just not showing up, really, and some very questionable tactics from them.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be a big question asked of Virtus Pro, not only amongst themselves, but from the community who have followed them for quite some time and haven't seen them drop a game for a while, since I think even Season 2, and in that fashion as well, and by such a margin. And of course, Tornado Rocks with versus ASAP was our last game of the day. And as you said earlier in our little intro, ASAP actually showing a little bit more promise, taking 4 rounds off Tornado Rocks, who, as we've seen, have been battling it up there with some of the best teams in the league.
Amazing. I mean, really, Tornado Rocks kind of went into that match thinking that they were able to walk away with it with like a 5-1 or maybe a 5-2 scoreline. But ASAP were extraordinary. And even going into that last tiebreaker round, ASAP had the advantage. They were defending on Ruenberg, but they threw it away, which is a bit of a shame because I was really looking to them to actually pick up their first win. But, Rocks just played extraordinarily well in that last round and took the point.
Yeah, they managed to grind it out, and we're definitely going to be interested to see what Rocks are going to be able to produce from us in the future. A team that definitely shows quite a lot of tenacity out there on the battlefield. But let's have a look at a table and see where we are so far. Obviously, we are in Week 3, Day number 2. Supreme standing strong at the top of that ladder. Really have been very hard to topple by a lot of these teams, and it is not common to see Virtus Pro down at 5th place.
It's not common to see Virtus Pro with a loss next to their name. They really haven't lost anything since Season 3, haven't lost a match since Season 3, so losing at Synergy, as we mentioned, truly extraordinary. But I think Supreme is in a pretty normal position. I think Tornado as well, apart from that little kind of dink in that armor against ASAP, I think they're looking to be strong, and Synergy with that positional play, despite lacking some player skill, also maybe a top 2 team.
And of course, there is no team without any points at this stage. No Mercy and ASAP actually pushing teams to that tiebreaker stage, getting that 1 point off them as well, and that's why you're seeing them with that 1 point each. And now, let's set our eyes towards today's matches. We still want to see how Week 3 is going to be shaping up. So we've got the last 3 games of the week. Utopia versus PENTA Sports, 6th versus 7th, if I'm not mistaken, looking at the table. It's going to be an interesting face-off. And given where they are based, a little bit hard to kind of predict who's going to come out on top there.
Yeah, I think PENTA, they were a very good team in Season 5. They had a disappointing offline finals, of course. They were tipped to be one of the European representatives at the grand finals. I hope that they can actually get in their stride in this match and potentially take it, because they really do need that momentum going throughout the season.
No Mercy versus Supreme in the second game of the day. And I mean, if you look at the ladder, it feels like a bit of a mismatch. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? It's kind of hard, given what we've seen from No Mercy, to put them at any sort of advantage in that game.
Yeah, well, No Mercy, they started the season well against Wusa, just about losing that tiebreaker, then got basically obliterated by Strong. But in my opinion, Supreme have just looked so incredible that No Mercy will really have to bring out something which we haven't seen before if they want to win that match. And
our last game of the day, of course, will be Kaz Crew going up against ASAP. Kaz Crew, showing some strong results against some of the higher tier teams, against the top teams as well. A team that we would definitely put in the top 4. And ASAP as well have sort of struggled a bit as well. I mean, they've only won rounds in 3 of their maps. In 3 maps out of 6 that they've played. and 80% of those occurred in their game against Rocks. So we are just starting to see a little bit of ASAP now coming to the fore. Now they're starting to perform a little bit, albeit just falling short against Rocks.
Yeah, ASAP's first start to the season was very bad, 5-1, 5-0 scoreline. I'm really happy, as I said before, that they managed to pull such an incredible result against Rocks, and a bit shame they didn't manage to win it and go all the way. But I think that's going to make Kazna scared, and it's going to make Kazna practice and make sure they have all the kind of T's crossed and the I's dotted for this one. So
let's zero in a little bit more on our first game of the day, of course. It's going to be Utopia up against Penta. Both one win, one loss this far in the season. As I said, hard to really separate these guys sitting in the middle of the table. What are your initial thoughts, I guess, expanding on what we spoke about earlier on how this matchup's going to play out?
Well, I think Penta, on paper, have the experience and the results in the past to actually walk away with one. Of course, with a few roster changes here and there, but I think Raven's been playing fantastically. He's had some good damage. But for me, I do give that one to Penta. Utopia, they are pretty similar to their last season roster, but they seem to be a bit shaky. Of course, losing versus Synergy 3-5. And yes, it was a close game, but I think Penta are just slightly better, and they'll be able to walk away with this.
Both of these teams as well have taken games off sort of the big teams, but more importantly is that they're winning against those lower tier teams. I mean, like you saw, like ASAP, Utopia sort of managed to take them out. Penta obviously getting good wins earlier on. But against those top teams, they're faltering. And I guess that's kind of why they are where they are on the ladder at the moment. Especially Utopia, who were competitive against Synergy, I feel like. Saw some good plays from them, but the strategic depth of what Synergy were bringing, especially on steps, really looked like it shook them to the core.
Yeah, I think against Synergy, they seem to lack a little bit of panache, and Synergy just seemed to have been practiced a little bit more. Utopia, slightly shaky in many respects. I think overall, they can be way too hasty. I mean, we saw in steps they were being really aggressive, unnecessarily aggressive, and Hunters all getting caught out in the T54 on the right side. It was just a little bit shaky, and I think a lot of the teams kind of forget the importance of steps where, okay, so we can be good at the new maps, Mines and Lakeville and Ghost Town, for instance, but we see real weaknesses in teams on maps like Steps and maybe even Himmelsdorf.
It can really actually reveal some of the strategic issues in teams, that map, because you have to be so reactive, you have to be so flexible as well, and there's such a myriad of opportunities and strategies that teams can come up with, and you can gain information about the team's positioning, and you sort of do have an idea of where they're going if you're using your scouts well, but it's tough. I mean, and we see so often, I want to talk about the attacking side on Steps specifically, teams that favour going for that northern cap. It just seems like, to me, the way we're seeing the play on that map evolve, that going for that northern cap just seems like such a dice roll when you've got so many blind shots coming in from teams that are sort of set up on the east side valley. Yeah,
I mean, it's only a matter of time before you actually get the reset. So I think, I mean, at the beginning of the season, we're still out at the beginning of the season, but at the first couple of match weeks, we saw a lot of teams go for that southern attack because, if we go up north, we theoretically have a better chance of winning. But with all those blind shots and the positions the teams can get onto shooting that cap, it's very hard to actually execute it properly. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw, Utopia actually pick up, for instance, something like an IS3 or T32, because they will be going on the attacking side first on Steps. Of course, Steps, Himmelsdorf are first two maps. So we'll have to see. I've always been a pretty big fan of Penta on Steps. They seem to have got a lot of good T54 players, which didn't work out well for them on Mines, of course, against Supreme. But it does work out well against teams that don't really know how to play that light tank, that kind of agile kind of setup.
Well, I'm definitely interested to see how it plays out, because both of these teams, both Utopia and Penta, have only taken one round, respectively, on Steps this season. Regardless of the side, attack or defense, one round. So they have struggled, both individually, when they've had to play it. And as we look a little bit forward towards Himmelsdorf as well, Utopia went 2-2 with Himmelsdorf on that map. So they're showing some depth. I mean, Himmelsdorf is that kind of map where you can have some interesting sort of scenarios. We're waiting for our map picks to come in, ladies and gentlemen, before we jump right in and see what the tanks that people are going to be rolling out with as well. So it's hard. Penta have been a team that's been around for quite some time, obviously through various evolutions and stuff like that. But if I look at the maps we're going to be seeing here, I have to wonder. I almost feel that the numbers are favouring Utopia in this matchup.
Yeah, well, the thing is, Utopia's had a chance to play Himmelsdorf, and Penta hasn't this season. And with all the changes, of course, Penta would have been practicing, but with all the changes, as I say before, you know, you need to get that real match experience, that kind of real-world pressure to actually really understand how a map plays out.
Absolutely. And guys, if you want to get involved with the conversation here at the WGLEU, all you need to do is tweet at us with the hashtag WGLEU. If you want to know whether we're actually wearing long pants or shorts underneath this desk, you can find out by just asking us the question. But we're going to jump into our first map, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be Steps. All right, Steps is the first map. Of course, Penta in the red are defending, Utopia in the blue attacking here. And you mentioned some IS-3 play, Oliver. It seems like we're seeing some of that from Utopia.
Yeah, I think, you know, we saw when they played against Synergy on Steps that they're kind of, they're like, I hate to say it, but they're like tank players a little bit lackluster. They didn't seem to have good synergy, good coordination, and that definitely didn't work out. So they're going for the overmatch with the heavy tanks. And I think that's probably a better way of doing it. Of course, you know, with those IS-3s, slow, kind of big, cumbersome tanks, they're going to be going down south and over towards that right side. But you got the 251 immediately heading up and towards the left side of this map, and you know, that's just to try and get the reset on. But it can also do a very good job. I mean, the reason why you put a 251 up there instead of a T-54 is because it can shoot down. It's got good gun depression, so you can also defend that eastern cap.
There's almost a feeling here that Utopia aren't really thinking about the northern cap. I mean, with a lineup like that, it's not a real surprise, but 3 IS-3s they have, and they're heading in towards that eastern little valley here. A few shots have already come out towards Penta, and they have sort of wounded Killapir and Fluky. That was the Shukyu and Mac Money combination of 54 lightweights just shooting down across those defilades. So Utopia setting up here with their IS-3s. Are they just going to try and muscle their way on towards the cap? Yeah,
they are. They're just going to go straight towards the cap, and I think that's the best thing to do because, as I said before, the IS-3s, great tank with good armor. Now they can just go forwards, sit hull down. They will have to worry about Message, but Message, he's going to be the biggest threat, but as long as they can connect some shells, he really won't be that much of a big difference, and it will force Penta now to actually flank around and come from a few angles because at the moment Utopia's setup is pretty unbreakable.
Message has been spotted, so they're aware of his presence, but have a look at the 3 IS-3s setting up on that capture point. The dead zone, however, is forced to push over and try and assist a little bit with his team, at least trying to put some shots into them, but it's tough armor to break those IS-3s, and the 54 lightweight doesn't always have the easiest time getting through there. Look at these IS-3s. They've got their space side armor turned towards the dead zone, and they're essentially ignoring him right now. He is managing to get a bit of a slight reset, but with 10 seconds to go, Penta have to act now.
Yeah, they have to go forwards and get these resets, but the dead zone, he's been such a good player for Penta so far in this season. He's doing his job, he's getting the resets, and it's making it very hard for Utopia to cap this.
Utopia definitely getting chunked down on that capture site. Base capture now down to about 13 seconds, but those IS-3s are taking a bit of a battering here. The dead zone, Raging Potato, and off to the rest of your screen, the rest of Penta are encroaching up now. Time is always ticking, but there's always going to be the opportunity to get those resets here from those lightweights. The dead zone pokes up, has a shot, takes one in response, but Utopia just sitting on this one. They still got the health point advantage, but it looks like the IS-3s, they want to push off.
Yeah, they know they can't cap this and actually going to go forwards. Now, this is on New Multi Show to do something. We get absolutely destroyed.
Raging Potato now having to deal with 3 IS-3s looking straight at him. The dead zone's trying to get a little bit of flank play on, and Hunterzord goes quite low. Mac Money did take down Fluky in the middle of the map. That's going to free him up to assist in this main fight here, because Killapit takes down Hunterzord. That's 1 IS-3 down. Shukyu trying to get over the hill. Some shots on towards dead zone as well, chunking him low. Killapit goes low as well. Muka now joining the fight from the valley side, and Penta are running out of tanks.
Yeah, they've only got a T-32 and a couple of very low HP light tanks, and one less as Killapit falls.
Hacky, Message. Last 2 standing. Hacky's supposed to be the pivot point here, that T-32. Normally the tank that teams will try and take out first, but the Utopia weren't too bothered about it really now. Hacky did manage to pick up a tank there, and he's going to have to back right away. He's being surrounded by a lot of people right now, and Message is so low. If he chances to take a shot here, it's quite likely he'll be taken out himself.
Ooh, but he might be able to just do it, but Wicked has got the cross and does fall, leaving only Hacky alive in that T-32.
And it won't be long before, well, he goes down. Of course, Utopia with an interesting strategy, not one we're really used to seeing actually on Steps. They're taking this heavy lineup, they're pushing onto that cap.
Yep.
And it seems like at least their plan B was kind of effective with those IS-3s just pushing off and going for the fight.
Yeah, I think season 1, 2015-16, is turning to be a season of the IS-3s because, what can I say, 3,000 damage done by team captain Muka. I mean, I was definitely one of my standout players this season, even as the team captain, which we often say, okay, he's got to do a little bit too much. And you kind of, get tunnel vision like we see from Karitz, for instance, and sometimes even Hyber from Krasnokru. So, as I said, 2015 is turning out to be the season of, IS-3s. 2014 was the season of T-54s. So, what can you do? I mean, literally, what can you do with the T-54s against these IS-3s? They have so much more damage potential, so much more armor, so much more hit points, that even when, in my opinion, Penta played really well, especially the dead zone here, what could he do? I mean, he just simply didn't stand a chance. I
mean, he was getting the resets. I think Utopia probably couldn't have left it too much later than that to push off that cap and actually go for the fight. And Muka, who you might see a little bit later on as well, he did really good work through that valley. A lot of the time he was actually off screen. We were sort of focusing on the main cap here. But the fact was that it was only the dead zone, and I think one other Penta tank that were actually able to reset. The rest of Penta were pushed right away. They weren't able to get involved in that fight. I mean, the fact that Utopia had 3 IS-3s at half health before they even pushed off the cap and still won, says a lot about what was happening outside of that little engagement.
And I think we got to also mention that new multi-show got 3-shot. He had 1,100 hit points or something around that, and then boom, 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 all 3 IS-3s connect into him, I believe his actual turret, and he just gets obliterated. And that's probably one of the main reasons why they actually lost, because losing a T-54 like that is just not fun. And I think Penta, they should have probably just actually flexed out of that position and come around from another angle, because, yeah, okay, those 3 T-54s of Utopia were doing a good job from behind to defend the flanks of the IS-3s, but still Penta had some flexibility. They didn't have to worry about the northern cap. All they had to do was come from a different angle and made sure that they didn't receive too much damage for it.
It was just fluky on the T-37 that actually went for any sort of flanking maneuver. And I mean, quite easily, I think it was Shuki just sort of took him out and said, well, he's more of a fly. Now I'm just kind of swatting. So, interesting from Utopia, is this a kind of repeatable strat? Do you feel like this is one that is foolproof if they take enough IS-3s? Or do you think there's some innovation required here?
Well, I can tell you right now that they have ditched those IS-3s and gone for a 5 T-64 lightweight AMX 12T. Interesting on the AMX, good. We've seen it before. I mean, a good camo tank, but clearly Utopia want to go up to that northern strat now. In my opinion, Penta were very good on this map when they played against that northern strategy. So I think they're definitely going to struggle, and Utopia, as I mentioned before, weren't so good against Synergy up north. So let's see how this one works out.
As we said before, both teams only with 1 round apiece on this map this season. Obviously, Utopia with 2 now. So Message is going to go up towards the top of that hill in that fairly standard spot. And it seemed like it was reasonably effective for him earlier on. But the reality was that he was spotted, and he was always sort of taking shots, when he tried to lay down some covering fire there. So those back tanks of Utopia had the freedom just to have pot shots towards the hill. But yeah, like you said, Oliver, all 54 lightweights here, and the 12-ton, very different strategy, very different rollout from Utopia.
Yeah, so this is actually the one they used against Synergy, and they pushed it in the A5, A6 area. They went down towards that eastern side. I'm not sure if they're going to do that this time. They will have to be careful they don't sacrifice that MX-12T, but as I said before, they got it in the cap as soon as possible, and they should be okay. Very small tank, very hard to hit, and decent camo value. So Wicked is also getting himself in towards the left position. You can see Penta are blind shooting where maybe Utopia is boosting up in towards the A2 area. Of course, something ASAP did yesterday against Rox, and although it didn't do any damage, definitely a good call.
Well, it's what we saw initially from Supreme as well. That was sort of the first team that we saw do it, and I don't know if it was really super effective in their case, but still definitely a bit of innovation here. So Papa is on that cap right now. Just getting that one ticking down. You can see already Penta are mobilizing there a little bit towards the lower part of that valley. Now, 12-ton over a 59-16. What are your thoughts about that one? I know 59-16 does have an amazing camo value.
Yeah, they both do. And of course, the 12 ton's just a lot smaller, and it's got a better camo value. Ooh, nice little blind shot there onto Papa. You can see Papa has to go a little bit further forwards because he doesn't want to get shot by Killer Pit and the other T-54s on the southern side of the cap. Yeah, but in my opinion, I prefer the 59-16. But whatever floats your boat, I guess. And of course, Utopia prefer that 12-ton with the autoloader.
Well, Papa probably wishes he could float right away from this situation right now because he's copped a few shots in the side of him, and that it's been a complete reset on the capture both times. Utopia have to think about a different strategy here. They need to approach this. Their plan B was good last time. Will it be as good this time, though? Hunterzord takes a hit as well as he sort of sets up. Now the line of scrimmage is drawn straight from north to south on this map, and Utopia, well, the onus is on them to create some sort of opportunity.
This is actually exactly what Synergy did against Virtus Pro to beat them on the steps on the attacking side. But let's see if Penta has actually learned a lesson here and not gone straight for the middle push, but instead actually go from the south, or maybe even go up the A5, A6 area and just try and take down Wicked in the northern A2.
Hunterzord, just a bit of poke up now to have a shot. You can see Papa sat himself behind one of that sort of that low mesa, that low hill, so it would be a lot harder to hit him, and it'd force actually Penta to go more north or even more south to try and get a shot, which would make them more vulnerable to the rest of Utopia. So, I mean, base capture ticking down now. Muka maybe just trying to evoke some sort of response here from Penta by moving himself onto that capture, halving the time, and now it's down to 15 seconds. Penta have to respond to this.
Ooh, nice little shot there by Killer Pit. Only gets the track onto Muka, but yeah, this is really depends on, it kind of tests your metal. I mean, it really does depend if Penta just bite the bullet and go forwards and get the reset. I think they will go for it.
Fluky now trying to get the spot. Will he get taken out before they can get it? No, Muka takes 2 hits there. He's forced to back off the circle, but now Papa, he's got all the capture points on him. He sits behind Wicked right now. He's just trying to weather the storm, but will it be enough? You can see Papa is still alive, but 2 big hits towards Wicked there. Got taken down by 700 health. 5 seconds left. Muka now wants to move up and absorb some shots as well. Papa cowering behind those bigger tanks. Oh dear, there's the reset though, a slight one if anything, but looks like Utopia might be able to capture this out. Papa is still safe, and somehow, against the odds, Utopia have completed the capture against the firing squad of Penta Sports.
Penta just resting on their laurels for so long. At the end of the day, if you don't go forwards and you don't just actually go for that movement, you are going to get beaten down for it, and you could see there, Penta was so reluctant to actually go and deal with that cap. They were going for the blind shots. They were going for what they'd obviously done in practice, and it just didn't work against Utopia. Great position there from the T-54 Muka going forwards, and then also having the foresight to put another tank on his side to make sure that side shot is actually protected as well. And I just have to say it. I mean, Penta let that one run away from them.
This is when Papa first moved up on towards that cap circle, and you can see that Penta is still mostly grouped up towards the north here. Now, he made a slight positional change, and that really forced Penta to actually commit a bit more to resetting this. Yeah,
but that's the thing. They don't commit enough. They had to have done something here. And when you look at the line there, Utopia has, the logical choice is just go up north, because that northern area is very hard to deal with if you have tanks ready to peek over the railroad. So, I mean, it depends also how quickly Utopia actually, react and commit to something. But I think there's a lot of lessons there to be learned from Penta, and Utopia coming out again with 2 completely different tactics and making them both work for them.
Yeah, you can see here Penta, I guess, made their gambit by pushing Fluky out to try and get the spots, and he did. But we saw Wicked he literally sacrificed himself to keep those capture points on Papa. Obviously, he had accrued some capture points of his own, so when he died, it was reset slightly. But there were so many points accrued on Papa that all he had to do was stay behind. I think it was Muka as well there to win the round. This is the way that the steps are sort of evolving now. Teams are just sort of taking that risk, and it is a risk because Penta were in a really similar scenario. I know it was Wusa, sorry, I think it might have been, where they had tanks on the cap. The enemy team was a little bit more proactive.
Yeah,
and I think, yeah, exactly. It was like 1 second, 0 seconds. And
0.
I think, Lauren, you guys were saying it's almost done, but it wasn't quite confirmed.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of flip side of the coin you can see in this scenario. If teams can sort of pick up their balls and go for it, they're usually able to reset.
Yeah, it's one of those things that if you don't complete it, and if one more of those blind shots had actually connected, it's game over for you. It's such a gamble on steps. I think if you want to go for something more reliable, then you should definitely go for that southern push. But again, that was definitely down to Penta not willing to do anything, not willing to go forwards, and maybe sacrifice a couple of tanks to get the reset on, get the MX-12T down, or going aggressive. Perhaps a little bit scared because obviously they went a little bit too up north against I think it was Strink, and that definitely caused them a lot of harm. All
right. Well, I mean, role switching now. Of course, Penta now are going to be on the attacking side, and of course Utopia defending here. I mean, they've done well. Utopia have got their 2 attacking rounds here, so they literally have 4 times the rounds on this map than Penta have. This is obviously Penta's chance to attack now. We've seen innovations. We're seeing different kind of strategies here. We're starting to get the lay of the land in terms of the ways that teams are thinking about steps, the way that they're playing it out here. You'd feel more confident seeing Penta go for a southern push, though?
Well, looking at their lineup, they've got two RU251 and, 5 T54 lightweights and an MX-12T. So, I think Penta, as Penta does, they don't like those heavy tanks. They don't really have a player, I guess, apart from Raging Potato, that is really 100% competent on them. And also, just generally as a team, it doesn't suit them that well, whilst, of course, Utopia picking up a couple of those IS-3s. Now, in my opinion, 2 IS-3s on the defensive side, just not a good idea. We've seen it before, and when we saw it, it was a very easy tank to kind of drag around the map, and you can see already Utopia are putting themselves in a position where they can be dragged out and taken down.
Papa gets the spot towards new multi-show, and obviously seeing the 54 lightweight there doesn't give away a heck of a lot, but you can see here the position of Utopia way back up in the northern side. Can they really respond to a southern push quickly enough from here?
I don't know. I don't think they can. I mean, the one good thing that Utopia is going for them right now is the fact that Penta don't have any heavy tanks. So at the end of the day, it will just come down to a brawl, but well, New Mighty Show gets rid of that 59-16 in a matter of seconds.
Now, this positioning, Utopia are actually in Wooster's position, I think up against Supreme, and this really hurt them when those tanks pushed onto that eastern cap, and Wooster was still caught up at the top and had to respond. Now, they're going to have to do just that, and you can see they're all mobilizing, coming forward. There's IS-3s fast in terms of heavy tanks, but objectively speaking, they are not quick at all. Mac Money's going to take a shot. You can see him on the screen now. Wicked will probably be one of the first to get to that engagement. You can see the Hunter's Order as well is creeping up on this one. Utopia already down a tank, but the health points are fairly even. That's helped a little bit by the presence of the two 1,500 health point IS-3s. Time is ticking down. It's almost like Utopia have to commit a little bit to this, and they are. Hunter's Order goes fairly low. Penta pushing straight off of that capture space, though. They want to get the overmatch here. They see Wicked. They're almost going to turn their heads away. They just want to wreck Utopia now as quickly as they can.
I would have loved to see an MX-3090 in this situation, but they don't take it. Raging Potato does dispatch of star player McMoney.
Oh, Penta Sports with the tanks right now. And the health points is still in the balance, so Shukyu is going to get pushed on towards by Fluky and the dead zone. You can also see Hacky up at the top of your screen. He'll be able to hook around and assist in this regard as well. It's only 3 tanks left for Utopia, and Shukyu now is going to get a shot on towards the dead zone, but he's going to have Hacky to come up behind him. He's got Fluky harassing him at his front. Utopia have 2 tanks up against 6.
Yeah, this is game over. Message and New Mighty Show are going to make mincemeat of Potomaka and the IS-3, and Shukyu is also in a 2 versus 1 situation.
Potomaka not even bothering to try and turn his turret or turn his tank, not to bounce any shots. It's that moment in water tanks that you have when you just go back to the garage and know you're pretty much done. I have him a few times in random battles. I'm like, it's 1 versus 10. All right, let's try another take, baby.
Yeah, drive into the sea.
We've seen that a few times, actually, yeah. All right, good showing from Penta there. We're going for that southern cap, really, again, forcing a response from Utopia this time in that northern setup. It's strange, that setup. I could see the idea of it. It almost feels like they're set up in the north to try and deny the north cap push, but then they kind of gimp themselves when it comes to defending from the east.
I think it was actually a bait tactic from Utopia. I think they set themselves up into a position where they could actually get back to the eastern cap in time, and they say, okay, Penta, you can take that eastern cap, but we're gonna have those IS-3s and the T-54s to basically push around and get the resets. Now, if Penta had stayed in the cap and they got pestered by those IS-3s, they got chunked down, they got to deal with those hull-down IS-3s, it would have been game over. But what they didn't expect is that Penta would just push off with 4 T-54s and single out, I think it was Mooker in a T-54. And that's really what won them the game. So massive congratulations to that good adaptation on Penta's part and not going for the easy kind of capping tactic we've seen a lot of teams do.
It was an incredibly quick response there from Penta as well, pushing off. I mean, it's funny. It's like at what point do we sort of push off? Can we take any more damage before doing that? So, a good team's out to have a good gauge on, when they go to sort of set up on the cap, they might get reset a couple times. It's like, right, do we have enough health now still to go and fight these guys? Or do we need to try something else? But the fact is they had Utopia spread around them a bit. Yep. Penta could push off the cap in numbers like that. So straight away, they pushed on, took out one tank. It was like 3v1, 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 2v1. They had those overmatch scenarios, and it's tough. Teams have to really think about this when they go into these fights. So we were creeping up, trying to get resets, but at any moment, a team like Penta could turn around and jump on us.
That's the thing. I mean, Utopia definitely underestimated Penta. Penta is that team which goes for those overmatches, those engagements in the T-54s. You have to consider that a team's tactics is reflected by the tanks they take, and I don't think Utopia really saw through that kind of whole facade.
You said that as well. Penta are a team that don't like to take those heavy tanks. They really do prefer, the lightweight sort of lineup. I mean, new multi-show, probably one of the most accomplished heavy
the most
tank
damage
players.
last season.
And he played
last match as well.
Yeah, that's right. And he was definitely more of a 5100 player sort of back in the day, but not really a take that we're taking on this map. But what are we seeing here as well? Because Utopia have again changed their lineup completely. Yeah,
they've gone for the triple T-32. Now, in my opinion, Utopia is treading a thin line here. I mean, I can see, for instance, why Supreme likes the I3s on mines and why they wreck Penta with it. But at the end of the day, the more we go through this season, the more heavy tanks are picked, the easier it will be to counter and the more teams will learn how to counter it. So Utopia's got to be careful that they don't continue going for this like heavy-esque lineup every single time. Otherwise, they will eventually fall behind the meta, and teams like Penta will exploit that to their very best. Now, Penta pushing up north. Again, with that 12T, maybe trying to give Utopia a taste of their medicine.
Utopia, always the team to bring something new, bring something different, trying to innovate a little bit. And here's the setup from Penta. And speaking of innovation, we've seen this one now a couple times before. It is the train, of course, to get Message up on top of that hill. I like the mountain goat that he is, so we be able to cover a little bit more over. And this is actually excellent for like an A5, A6 push. But Utopia don't necessarily have to respond in that way as well. Do you think we'll see like a Penta-esque approach to defending from Utopia, where they just sort of put one tank across and try and get the spots? Or do you think it's wiser to sort of commit with your whole force?
Well, that's the thing. Utopia has that question. Obviously, Penta went for the latter, where they just, the former, where they just went forwards with one tank and tried to get the spot and then the reset, but obviously it didn't work out for them. So I think, in my opinion, Utopia is definitely that team will just push off. They'll just send the 3 T-32s through the middle, maybe one with Papa towards the right, and actually go for just a full head-on engagement. Now, this is what I don't understand. Oh, this is Message just destroys my point. Utopia on this map puts Papa in that bush every single time, and teams have to start learning just to blind shot it.
Well, Message there gets a shot on towards Papa. I don't think he was spotted there, so it may have been a blind shot.
Oh, a blind shot.
He's up in a good little spot there as well. Now, 3 T-32s. They are slower than IS-3s. They're not quick. Their hull arm is weak as well in a brawl. Is that really the wise idea? I know what they're trying to do. They want to poke up and get some sort of hull down positions with those really strong turrets. But is that going to be enough? They need those auxiliary tanks to actually get the spots.
Yeah, I don't think so. I honestly think Penta's a really good chance of winning this one. The biggest problem would be Papa in that position. He can just spot if Penta decide to go for what we've seen is the kind of north to south defensive line, attacking line even. So I just think Papa needs to go down. That's what they need to focus on next. I'm super surprised Messig in that 251 isn't continuing to blind shot where that bush is, but McMoney gets so lucky there. Actually, a shot hitting his track, and well, maybe he's got to try and get out of there. If he gets spotted, it's game over. Yeah, he wasn't spotted initially, but that killer pit will go over the top, and we'll manage to see him now. Potomac takes a shot from Message, but sends one back his way in return. Those T-32s constantly spotted, but that's no good to Penta because it's so hard to put damage on towards them because of how hard their heads are. The base capture has started now. Hacky and Raging Potato have moved on towards that circle. The dead zone in quite a forward position as well. Killer Pit is in a great spot to get those spots on Utopia tanks pushing up to get a look at the cap. And with Dead Zone in that position up north, in the eastern side, he's in such a good place to basically take down Papa. It just depends on how much Utopia commits towards shooting him and how quickly the Dead Zone reacts. I think that's what's going to happen next. The Dead Zone will get spotted via Papa. He'll either die or live, and depending on that result, it will be a win or a loss for Penta. Keep your eyes up on that easternmost tank there, the Dead Zone. We can see Papa actually starting to move, and he probably will spot the Dead Zone in just a moment. So as you predicted, Mr. Tank's Oracle, we're about to find out the Dead Zone, Killer Pit, and Raging Potato all just got spotted. The Dead Zone just going to back straight off of that hill and not chance at an engagement, but Raging Potato goes down. Hacky's been forced to move off of the cap as well, and there's Potomac putting that shell in towards him, taking him out. Yeah, I think, again, Messig really should have continued to blind shot that bush. Seriously, all the teams, you've seen Utopia play this map so many times. Why are you not just shooting that bush? at least for the first couple of minutes. It's been 5 minutes into this match, and Papa's still alive despite all those match days. So, oh well, Penta still going for the engage, and I think it didn't go too badly for them. Wicked's very low. Papa also went down. So now what Utopia has to do is that they have to fully commit to getting a reset, which is where, you know, Penta will be at an advantage with Messick all the way over and towards the A1 area, and also that T54 up north as well.
Blind shot, narrowly missing both the multi-show and the dead zone. They're sitting in that cap. There's going to be a shot towards him and put a bit of reset. You can see the dead zone actually is his tank faced away, so we can get off the cap as quickly as possible if it is required. Now, Fluky moving up into the dead zone's position there. Obviously isn't spotted. There's no Papa now to spot him out. It's only those lightweights and the 32s that are left for Utopia. Do they send out a lightweight to do the 59-16's job here?
I think they have to. I'm not sure. I really want to see what those T32s do. I mean, clearly the T54s are there just try and blind shot, but you've got to consider as well that I think it's new multi-show with the most amount of cap points. Messick also coming off the hill in that 251. So Penta's saying, okay, we're going to go and commit for this cap. We're not going to worry about the hill. We're not going to worry about the T32s going forwards because Killer Pit and that T54s up north just putting so much pressure onto those T32s. There's really not much they can do, but very brave move there from Penta just coming out of the cap.
Maybe they're expecting a push on towards them. The Killer Pit doing a stellar job cheating death over in that A5 area, just getting all the spots. But now Hunter Sword is going to light up the entirety of Penta Sports, and they are all together in a clump. So much information being given over to Utopia now, and Hunter Sword will pick off the dead zone. Also, Fluky is getting picked up. He's going to get pushed on towards by the Hunter Sword. And there's not much he can do except try and back around the corner, but the Hunter Sword is on top of him, and he's going to take him out with his next shot if he can connect it. That will be the end of him. Penta now trying to respond in the north side. They're amassing the last remaining tanks that they have, and that's only 3 to try and deal with this very, very heavy lineup.
Yeah, game over. Only new message left in the T54 and the 251. You'll see the rest of Utopia just collapse onto them.
I mean, Utopia, well, they have 20 seconds. They could wait it out, but they're going to go in for the killing blow. It's just Message and New Multi-Show valiantly trying to stand against Utopia, but it will be Utopia taking that match 3-1.
Yeah, that map going to Utopia, super surprising. I said at the beginning of the match that Penta seemed to be one of those teams that likes to play the T54s, but Utopia's getting better and better every match day. You know, with that win against ASAP, narrowly losing to Synergy, and now looking like in a good position to actually beat Penta. It's pretty incredible progression. But looking at what happened that last round, again, I mean, Utopia is always putting Papa in that bush. You know, most teams have a T37 or something, and it comes out, and then you have the tanks on the left or the tanks in the middle shooting that tier 6. That didn't happen. And game over really for Penta. As soon as Papa poked up, they spotted them, and really, there's not much Penta can do.
It feels like to me when I watch Utopia play, it's like the longer the Papa survives, the better their chances are. Sometimes we see Papa sort of get taken out sort of earlier onto the map. This is where Killer Pit now from Penta pushing up and getting some spots, and this is where I kind of felt that things were going a little bit better for Penta.
Yep.
They sort of were set up. We saw Killer Pit. He pushed even further down here after his forced mate money away. Message takes a hit there. He's not really going to write home about that one. The positioning is decent for Penta here. This is before they push on towards the cap. They have it's a standard setup, I like to say. And this is before Papa, I think, ran into the dead zone. But from here, this is where Utopia have the chance to actually take the initiative and change the game state.
Yeah, this is the point. You know, they see Penta's got 2 tanks in the cap. They see their positions on the map, and they're just in superior places. I think if you want to be Penta, you've got to learn, first of all, that Utopia is seriously a heavy tank-orientated team. So, you know, don't take the 59-16 or T37. Pick up an M44. Because you got a good chance of always having to be able to beat those heavy tanks down. Of course, you know, they would have had the whole situation where they can't put a tank in the cap, but a T54 can also sit in the cap or just screw the cap. I think in a lot of situations, those T32s are not good in brawls. They're good when they're hull down when Penta's doing what they did. So I think they just Penta needs to switch it up and play Utopia at their own game. And Utopia just being so solid and being unusual with their positions, it's just great stuff.
The one time where we saw Penta display some truly unbridled aggression against Utopia, it resulted in them winning the round.
Yeah.
The second that they let back and let the masterminds of Utopia sort of formulate these plans on the fly, it seems like they tend to fall apart. Now, Penta pushed off the cap there, strangely, sort of towards the end of the round. Was that because of a reset come in? Was that because they thought they were going to get pushed onto by the entirety of Utopia?
There was a T54. I think it was Mucko who was pushing off over the hill. You can see him up there, Hunterzord even. So as soon as that T54 spotted, Penta knows it's game over. And new multi-show gets capped. No, the dead zone gets tracked across the tracks and gets taken down. And at that point, there's really no comeback for Penta. And also 49 seconds left on the clock. Simply didn't have enough time.
Well, we're going to be seeing Himmelsdorf coming up next as our second map. We haven't seen Penta on this map yet. But we know that Penta's strategies don't often revolve around the heavier lineups, those heavier sort of strategies. We're not going to see them take a lightweight lineup into a Himmels game, but do you think that fact about them is going to impact the way that this map works? What are your thoughts on, in general, Penta and Himmelsdorf?
Well, we've seen one T54. I can't exactly remember which team it was, but
Synergy? Flex 54?
Perhaps we saw, I think maybe, but we saw one T54, and maybe Penta's going to go for the same strategy. It worked quite well. But yeah, again, I think Penta have been struggling with that T54 lineup. Maybe they are actually good at heavy tanks. We'll have to see. As you said, we haven't seen them on Himmelsdorf. Utopia's played on Himmelsdorf before. They got some experience. Maybe not the best results in the whole world, but they did crush ASAP on this map. So
that is true. That is true. Well, for those questions to be answered and many more, I'm sure, we're going to be getting onto Himmelsdorf after the break, so don't go too far. We're back with more Tanks action right after this. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the WGLEU. Game 1 is already underway. Penta versus Utopia. And Penta are up against the wall, maybe realising that they don't have the luxury of slacking any longer. No,
I expected Penta to take steps quite convincingly, but Utopia, with their very heavy lineups and very unorthodox positioning, have really shown Penta that they may have to rethink the way they play steps and the way they kind of position themselves and what lineups they do take on that map.
And you've said multiple times on and off stream as well that steps is the map that you have to know. You have to know this map if you want to be top 6, top 4, whatever. Because all teams are going to have that up their sleeve. You know, all the top teams have a strong steps, have a strong Himmelsdorf, regardless of side bias. So if we're seeing Penta as well falter, and I'll say falter on both sides. This is the second time that they have gone 3-1 down on steps.
Yeah.
Definitely have to fix something there.
Yeah, they do. They got a lot of problems right now, Penta. I'm not sure exactly what they're going to do to rectify them, but as you said, you know, steps and Himmelsdorf, we saw it pretty much exclusively on Tuesday and last week as well, and I think maybe we'll see it throughout this whole season. I think generally as the season goes through, we'll be able to see Lakeville more. We saw it, of course, last week as well. But in general, I think Penta and Utopia know that they need to be getting steps and Himmelsdorf just right.
Your bread and butter as World of Tanks teams as well. Now, Utopia, they've played already Himmelsdorf this season. Looked all right on it, actually. I think it was they and Synergy both won attacking rounds on that map here. So, you know, so they've got a feel for that one now. I don't doubt Penta would have been having a look at it. But let's jump in to Himmelsdorf. All right, so we'll be jumping in just a second. I think there's a match restart on that one, so both teams getting this stuff sorted. But we still whetted your appetite for a bit of Himmelsdorf play here. We end up seeing it almost every series here every week, so a good benchmark to be comparing teams on as well, to get an idea of sort of how they're performing. So, yes, a few teams are just getting their restart on, so it won't be too long before we jump back into that one. I mean, Utopia, when we first started today, you definitely sort of had your money on, or money if we were putting on Penta. Your opinion changing of them after having seen that steps game? I mean, it's not really too much different to what we've seen from them before. It's the second time they've struggled on that map. But does that maybe change your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I think it changed my opinion on Penta slightly because they were a team last season which did well straight off the gates, and this season they're not doing too well. But it's so early days, it's hard to even say that. And I think Utopia, they like their heavy tanks, and Penta's going to be really conscious of that going on to Himmelsdorf. So we'll see. I mean, in my opinion, when Synergy and Utopia went up against each other, of course, when we went to Synergy, Utopia were really kind of struggling on Himmelsdorf in many respects. I thought they did a good defensive side, but Synergy didn't play well either and kind of just went back and forward. So I don't know, we'll see. In my opinion, it's definitely Penta's chance to get back.
We saw a lot of smart flexes actually coming from Synergy on that map specifically, really did catch Utopia off guard. But you've got to ask the question, what kind of team is Penta if you stack them up against Synergy, if we're trying to think of how Utopia are going to perform based on past experiences? I feel like Penta's flex play, with the exception of balls to the wall, aggression, throw your entire lineup at the enemy, seems a bit questionable.
Yeah, I think they overextend. I think Utopia, in many respects, when they put up with a lot of pressure, they just don't really know how to handle it in a lot of respects. And you said their flex play is questionable, but they're playing really well right now. Utopia definitely looking like the better team than Penta, and to be honest, you know, Penta starting on this map is really going to give us the idea if they can actually maybe bring the scoreline even.
All right, so Penta in the red. They're attacking to keep themselves in contention for this one. Utopia are in the blue in the north, defending. Now, we expect heavy tanks on this one. I don't think we've been surprised by any of these lineup choices here.
No, IS3's 5100s, T37, MT25 from Utopia. Pretty standard stuff. I mean, for IS3s, perhaps, you know, the only slightly unusual thing, but I think a lot of teams are preferring IS3s, and to be honest, I think it's a more reliable lineup, especially along these long roads and around the buildings. Now, Penta, of course, on the attack first, looking like they want to stack up that 8 line. And I think it's a good idea because often at the first few seconds of the game, the defending side does like to push out and get themselves into a position where they can potentially defend that western side, and you can actually catch them out if they do that. All
right, Papa being moved onto a heavy tank for this game, that tier 8. Now, you know, it's very telling from Penta because a lot of teams spread their forces out across that entire G line, but they've kept them all in one sort of death ball over towards that corner of the 8-line road. So be interesting to see how they decide to push off from there. Hunterzord's just copying quite a few shots here, and none of them have penetrated. That IS-3 is just so hard to bust through, especially with the 5100 as well. I think it's only a 105 on there.
100 millimeter.
Yeah, there you go. So not super high caliber. Penetration isn't fantastic from that one. So yeah, for quite some time, I think that IS-3 of Hunterzord is going to be able to sit there and continue to get the spots.
And if you're Penta, you've got to worry as well because Utopia, they're not a team that's scared of just going forwards. They've a lot of times against Synergy on this map, they just went forwards, they went aggressive. They had good control and good kind of situational awareness on that 8 line. And they really enjoyed that. But Killerpit just get a shot there from Hunterzord, and this is a super gamble from Penta. If they can actually do damage against Hunter, and they're really putting a lot of resources to take him down, they could get caught out for that.
Seriously strange. Most teams have their tanks in this position well and truly at the start of the game, so they're responding to Hunterzord's positioning by putting tanks in his way, I guess. And Killerpit took that shot, and you can see the 5100 shots coming from the hill care of the dead zone. One of them has managed to bust through that IS-3. You can hear that satisfying sound if you're Hunterzord of the shots just bouncing straight off of him, and it is hard to get shot on towards that IS-3. A little damage to his modules there for Hunterzord, but he's definitely done his job right now, and he's given Utopia the chance to sort of push some of their tanks a bit further down that 2 line as well. But those 2 IS-3s from Penta Sports are getting in position to fight on the western side of the map.
I think Utopia being super slow right now. They can do so much to beat Penta, but they're not doing anything. They're in exactly the same positions. You've got the 2 tier 6 getting locked down on the right side, 5100 kind of flexing all around the place. And I think that's given you to Penta a great amount of time and positioning to actually win this match.
Penta are frying HE at Hunterzord right now, or at least Raging Potato was. You can see those shots towards the top of that commander's hatch. That's the weak spot on that tank. That's where you need to hit. It's not easy, but these guys are pro players. You see Penta Sports now congregating towards that western side. The 5100 and 2 IS-3s, though, for Utopia is still being held back to the northern side of the map, so they've been held in reserve. Let's see how much Penta wants to commit to this side of the map.
Nice. Killerpit takes down Hunterzord. In my opinion, you know, a new player to the team, a new player to the league, and one of the guys that's been super impressive. I've got him marked down as one of the top damage dealers this season. But the commitment from Utopia is extreme over towards the left side. And we've seen classically in the past, if you don't get to C2, C3 area when you're actually attacking, you're basically dead. And that's what Penta Sports needs to be keeping in mind and going forward to.
Well, they're going to try and do just that, but the dead zone's going to cover about half his health and damage as he gets across there. Some shots coming in from the firing squad of Utopia are going to make this a very costly maneuver for Penta Sports. New Multi-Show's going to take a shot as well. Those 2 5100s, they're in a position. I wouldn't say they're in position because they're still going to try and push around. Amuka is looking straight down the side of them, but he gets double tapped by those 5100s, and another shot towards Muka as well is going to force him away. And Penta now starting to push up on this western side.
Penta looking like they're in the driving seat right now. Don't see Muka getting away from Raging Potatoes. Big old BL9 there. But yeah, that's a good positional play from Penta, and now they really have all the cards.
All right, Utopia are going to get pushed onto by Penta now. It's a decent, about 1,400 health advantage for Penta Sports as they are coming forward now towards Utopia. Utopia looking left, looking right, looking for allies to help them out here. It's going to be Bishu, Shuki, Potomako, and Papa, the only real tanks to be able to defend against this push. And now Penta have moved on to the cap.
Super weird from Fluky. I'm not a massive fan of Fluky as a player. He just was so careless there taking a shot from Potomako, even though he's spotted. And that's cost maybe Penta a tank there because he's down to a one-shot. Now, you got that T-37 battle on the hill as well. Now, if Hacky wins that, it's going to be game over, and he probably will lose it because obviously the T-37 does a lot more damage and is very good in these firefights. But Penta's just set up now. They can actually get the overmatch in any respect, but they have got quite a lot of low hit points tanks as Utopia's got some good crosses.
Importantly enough, Shuku just went down there. Message confidently moving up to take a shot towards Papa. Bishu now forced back around the corner as well because Raging Potato and Fluky and the Dead Zone are all coming forward. The shots are hitting from Penta. They don't miss much at all. And Bishu now down to half health. Potomako less than half health. And Wicked is still trying to run away from his assailant, Hacky, up on top of that hill. There's no real gun guns in the game for Penta Sports now, for Utopia, should I say, as Penta Sports now push on for the final blow.
Yeah, Bishu's the only one remaining, down to almost a one-shot there, and maybe even a one-shot for the IS3s. And yeah, it's got a full clip. Let's see if he can make it work.
No, too many guns trained in his direction. Now, Potomako, the solitary defender for Utopia, 575 points of health. And here comes the firing squad. Message moves up. Potomako already takes a shot from the dead zone. And that is that. Penta Sports on the attack side of Himmelsdorf. Again, not many teams favouring that western push, but it definitely works out well if you can coordinate.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, Utopia, they did well against Synergy on Himmelsdorf because they were going aggressive. They really went for those movements early on, and this time around they didn't go for that. They left Hunterzor basically to hang out to dry there in that position behind the rubble. He went down eventually, even though the dead zone bounced a lot. And I think, you know, Utopia...
What's the point? What's the point in Utopia putting him here and having him get shots?
So he can spot the 8-line as well, and he can also get shots onto the side of tanks there. But this is the thing. He is there as well just to lock down that whole street. But what does Utopia do for it? They do nothing. Even with the whole of Penta just trying to kill Hunter Zord, it's not like they just go for a quick moving up the 8-line or try and come from behind or maybe go for that western side push. They just sit there in the same positions, and that costs them that round.
And it feels like Penta's initial positioning on that road, I mentioned, they didn't spread out along the G line. They didn't go for that sort of furthest building to sort of shoot through with the IS-3. They stacked themselves up at the very eastern end of that street. And I guess this is the follow-up from that. This is their push on here now. You mentioned Fluky taking that hit there from Potomako. Yeah. It definitely didn't seem like Cap was a possibility here.
I think Penta just puts the pressure onto Utopia here. They say, okay, Utopia with the advantage, come forwards, we'll get more of an advantage. And then you see Killer Pit going forwards, getting a good cross, and the 5100s also come off reload or just about have enough shells to go forwards. I think the dead zone's actually on reload there. And then you can just see Penta going forwards. They got their tanks alive. They got the more firepower, the more hit points, and they end the match with all 7 still alive and kicking.
It's great trading of health as well for those guys, really just effectively the way that they're pushing in to those sites. So, yeah, interesting set play out from Utopia. Maybe they didn't expect, you know, what Hunter Zord was, or to be honest, wasn't spotting on that G line. He did see a few tanks there. It took a long time. He would definitely have that steel wall medal after that game. It took a lot of hits in that IS-3. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Minimal capitalization on it. And we found that on Himmelsdorf, sometimes the best defense is a good offense. Yep. Teams that are able to really push down that train line, really get close to the attacking side's base, and then just lock them in there.
Yeah, you've got to get initial advantage. You need to be versatile. You need to be going forwards on the defensive side on Himmelsdorf because, you know, as the attacker, you have 2 options now. You've got that northern cap, which you didn't have in the previous iteration of Himmelsdorf, and you have the western cap, which we've seen the likes of Kazner and Virtus Pro go for a lot. So as a defender, you need to be keeping that eye on the 8-line. You need to be going forwards, being aggressive, trying to get some early damage. Not quite as aggressive as Virtus Pro does, but aggressive nonetheless.
Well, let's see if we can see a little bit more aggressiveness here from Utopia's defense. Well, Penta bringing it back. They can equalize here if they manage to get on top of it. They obviously will be on the red side. That is a lot of IS-3s.
It's an unbelievable amount of IS-3s. 5 IS-3s, 2 ISs, and I love that. I love that IS. The damage is the same as the IS-3 at 390. Penetration is not that far off, but obviously you can still bounce an IS-3 from the side and the front, but that's a lot of damage.
That is. I mean, those IS tanks are really cool to see them being used. Obviously, both of them are Tier 7 Russian heavies. A little bit smaller in size, as you can see, but still packing quite a punch here. So Hacky and Fluky will be piloting those ones in this particular match. Now, Ragey Potato, Hacky and Fluky were all spotted at some point there.
They're all spotted. The whole of Penta has been spotted.
Let's see what Utopia do with that information. It is a big push out towards that western side of the map, sending up their tanks. Really no one being left up towards the hill, no one being left towards the 8-line with the exception of Wicked here. Utopia definitely wanting to dig their heels in and repel the assault.
Utopia thought with all those IS-3s that Penta would push up the 8-line, and that's quite a logical decision from Penta if they did do that one, because I mean around the corners when you're fighting against 390 damage from the BL9s, what can you really do? 5100 just won't have the staying power, and you know you're doing 300 average damage per shot. It's just 100 less than the IS-3, so it really does add up very quickly. But they're not. Penta's going for the left side, and I think maybe a questionable decision on their part, but you see a lot of teams like that kind of movement.
The dead zone stopping still. He hasn't been spotted yet, and he knows it, so he's quite happy just to sit and survey things over on the western side. Raging Potato did have a shot. He was spotted, though. He's going to try and back down here. See, Wicked mostly being left to his own devices here on the 8 line. He's just going to keep patrolling that one and make sure that Penta aren't going to try and sneak any tanks up. But they're IS-3s and ISs, so it's not really as if they're, you know, going to be pulling out some very, very quick maneuvers here. They're definitely going to be trying to stay the course. And that's the game of World of Tanks. So often your strategy has to be sort of settled on before you even roll out, and you've got to stick to it now. But Message is pushing up the side, and all those ISs and IS-3s going to be making their way towards the cap.
Utopia's so conscious of the fact that if Penta just push up that 2-3 line, they're going to absolutely wreck them. And also the IS-3 along the side is going to do such good work. And so the Utopia really committing everything to try and stop that push. And so far, it's going very well. They got the hit points pretty close, whereas at the beginning, it was a bit more towards Penta. And they just need to keep themselves solid, keep themselves safe, and, you know, keep Penta at bay.
Bichu standing his ground there. He actually hasn't been spotted by his IS-3, so he was able to empty his clip towards the dead zone and new multi-show, and they have not yet connected with him at all. The two ISs and the IS-3 Killer Pit now leading that little troop have moved up in between those two houses now, and Penta have a bit of a crossfire here, but what is important that they need to get rid of is Bichu just harassing from A1 and 2.
That's the problem. The IS-3, I think it only has about 360 meter view range, whilst the MX-5100 has more, so it can just spot out these IS-3s over and over again. Now, you can see the adaptation from Utopia as well. You got the 5100 kind of predicting that Killer Pit or Haki or one of the other ISs will go through the middle and try and get some cross shots on. Obviously, that isn't happening. You got the MT-25 from behind. This is going pretty badly for Penta, I have to say. And yes, the cap's on the way, but you got the MT-25 from behind who can constantly reset and also spot the tanks there.
Yeah, I mean, the back of an IS or an IS-3 is quite prone to being shot. It's not strong armor. And you can see now Penta trying to push up there, getting a little bit nervous. It looked like Utopia were going to flex Muka in via the G line, but they brought him back now to bolster the main force to have some shots from the D line. And if Message pokes out just a little bit too far, he will be a lit target for Muka to try and destroy. Raging Potato is also got to be pushing up that 3-4 line here and try and get involved. Maybe you'll see Muka and might be stopped in his tracks.
Yeah, this is the thing. I thought the 5100 was there to stop, but he's not there anymore, so I think Raging Potato can do good work. Muka might just go for the engage and try and take him down.
Through the window, Raging Potato manages to hit Muka, and the shot in response is bounced, but Muka is an autoloader. He's got plenty of shells to use on towards Raging Potato, and Raging Potato has to get up towards that little hole, that hold down position, and try and use the hard head on the IS-3 to bounce some of those shots, because Muka still has 3 left. It will be enough to take out Raging Potato if he gets a little bit too cavalier about this. But he's in position. Raging Potato can get the proxy spot towards Muka here. But so far, it hasn't looked like Penta have been able to assist with that little fight. Raging Potato has to be careful.
This is definitely game over if Penta don't go forward, if they don't try something aggressive, because that MT-25 will just be able to get the reset. Penta are trying to get the cap done without expecting that MT-25 to be from behind. So again, they need to be going aggressive. They need to be trying to get the damage onto Utopia. Otherwise, I just don't see how they can win this one. But one bounce onto Raging Potato might just cost Muka his life.
Muka, though, has 2 shots there as well. He can use them. Raging Potato going to back straight on away. Wait for the reload, and Muka knows World of Tanks 101. Don't push around a corner into an enemy that's already reloaded, so we might have to think about this in a little bit of a different way. Look at the timer on your screen. The base capture, it has been reset time after time after time. Message now in that vulnerable position. He's trying to side scrape, use that spaced armor against Potomaco and Papa, but he realizes he might just have to back away and find a better vantage point. And now Muka, well, new multi-show is going to come up with Raging Potato. The Potato has friends, but will it be enough? Muka is holding on, but now he is on reload. Those 2 IS-3s can push onto him at their leisure and take him out, and Muka knows it. So does Raging Potato. That tank is going to go down, but the base capture is still being reset. There's only 1 minute left in this round.
A really surprising miss there for New Multi-Show. He definitely should have missed that one. That's cost Penta a few seconds. I think Penta are doing quite well now. They can actually go forwards, and they put Utopia on their back foot.
Bichu now, a 1 shot, and he gets taken down. Raging Potato barrels around the corner and picks him up. New Multi-Show will be joining him there. Message does go down. Haki also hits the deck as well, but Penta still have the guns to bear if they use him the right way. Potomaco and Papa trying to push on. There'll be a 5v2 overmatch if those two can get around the corner, but great position by Shuki to come out, to stop them from pushing in. Raging Potato goes down, Papa hits the deck, care of Killer Pit. It's a 3v4, Potomaco is low, Fluky trying to go head-to-head, tier 7 versus tier 8, but if he can get that one more shot towards it, but no, Hunterzord cuts him down just as he's about to reload. Killer Pit will deal with Potomaco. There's still 3 tanks though for Utopia. It's close in health points. One fluff shot could mean the difference between life or death here, and New Multi picks up Shuki.
Oh, New Multi Show just doing such a great job, 1 versus 1 situation. At the moment, Penta are definitely in a good position if they didn't have more time.
Brilliant, and it was only Wicked left, so, I mean, it was a 3v2, but it was essentially the 2v2 in terms of those heavy tanks. Great work by Penta, but time ran out.
Yeah, they were just going for the cap. I said it. Penta had the tanks to go forwards and take down Utopia. Also, the individual skill was a lot higher from Penta there. You can see both Raging Potato and New Multi Show hitting upwards of 2.2k damage. And they should have just gone forwards. Just gone forwards and dealt with Utopia. But Utopia, great play there. They had the MT25 in the back. They kept on getting resets on. They wore that clock down. And it was just too little, too late from Penta. And, you know, obviously the M225 on the hill just guaranteed them the win.
And the proportion of the reset is determined by the damage being done. So it wasn't a hell of a lot of damage from the MT25, but it was enough. Now, this is the initial setup. This is as Penta start to sort of push over here. Is this the correct setup? Could they have been more aggressive? Or are you sort of fairly satisfied with this?
The thing Penta would be scared about there is that 5100. It's not spotted, but you can kind of guess it's there. I think the 5100 gets spotted later, which causes Penta to go into the middle because they know they won't get shots from the side. But either way, I think they should have been more aggressive, and I don't think the western side was the greatest thing to do. You know, if you're going to be using those big guns, just go up the 8 line and see what happens. That kind of push into the cap doesn't work because of the tier 6. The tier 6 could pretty much solo them. And yes, they won because of some good individual play and some sloppy play from Utopia. But it was always going to be Utopia picking up that round.
This is the argument, though, here as well. And Amuka obviously going in that head-to-head.
Missing.
Now, New Multi-Show was sort of, yeah, he was sort of had to be brought out of the woodwork here. They took a lot of damage on towards Muka, but what's probably even more important than this specific engagement is look at the map. Look at the positions of Penta here. They're still not pushing forward. They take this 2v1 because it's comfortable for them, but they don't really go aggressive, and it's already 1 minute left in the game at this point.
It's so over then. It's already so over. I mean, it took them 38 seconds to wipe the floor with Utopia, but of course that MT25. So I think, you know, Utopia just standing their ground and looking like a team that doesn't have all that many weaknesses. Questionable player skill in some respects, but that's obviously the nerve still kicking in. It's not a new team, but they got quite a few new players. For instance, Hunterzord. And I think they're doing very well here. They can be happy with this result so far.
Penta, the reason why they were losing those rounds on steps is because they were lacking aggressiveness. This map is the same. That one good map that they won on steps was, as we said, we've brought it up, we're rehashing it. It was because they pushed off the cap. They went for the throat and they took the game. It seems like they don't back themselves in that 1v1, or maybe they just think that at the end of the day, like, they can be tactical and passive the whole time and still get the win. This is kind of why Virtus Pro had to adapt as well. Because of the way the game works now, especially on steps more than any other map where the lightweight's being quite prevalent, you have to be aggressive. You have to take your opportunity to go forward, and it's a shot calling error as well. Definitely something that needs to be addressed. Yeah,
I think they got so many things going wrong for them right now. It doesn't look like the Penta we had last season. I mean, clearly, you know, we got plenty more time to play, plenty more match days to go. I mean, we've still got, what, 8 more match days? But still, Penta need to start, you know, upping the ante and actually bring a couple rounds back and maybe even get a point of Utopia.
Well, Penta have a chance, at least in this map, their final chance, to stay in the game. They're going to be defending again, going up against Utopia on the attacking side. Crucial times for Penta now. This is not a position they maybe expected themselves to be in. I know a lot of people backed Penta in the community. I know the numbers, or at least the record, favoured them. But what do we got here?
So a pretty standard lineup from both teams. You got 4 IS3s, 2 5100s, and 12 T from Penta, and very much the same from Utopia. Obviously, the MT25 with its great view range being picked up by Utopia. But The big difference is that we have had the old switcheroo. Penta's gone on the defense and Utopia's on the attack. Obviously, we haven't had a chance to see Penta play Himmelsdorf yet. But when we saw Utopia play Himmelsdorf on the attack, they were very aggressive. They like to play along that 8 line, and they look like they're going to do the same this round as well.
Absolutely, and you can see they do have that 5100 position up on towards the hill. 2 IS-3s, however, being left back, kept towards the church in the south. So maybe just a flexible lineup for Utopia here. Can sort of decide what they're doing on the fly. And Penta definitely pushing a reasonable way down towards that 2 line. We see this from a lot of teams. They venture quite a long way down those train tracks and then sort of pull back just to make sure that there's no early push that's going on here. Hacky holding Vigil in the middle of the map here, just trying to keep eyes on Utopia. But now it looks like they want to go for that 8-line push.
Nice, clever movement there from Utopia. They went across the churchyards. They got spotted by Hacky, and then they just reversed and got immediately towards the right side. And that's kind of caught Penta off guard. Penta was setting up for a left side defensive line, and now they got to get themselves in positions for that eastern side. Obviously, they will get the position in time, but then you got the tank in F1 now. Typically, so far this season, when a tank's been in that F1 area, it's almost always caused big issues for the defending side.
Muka sitting back. There's actually no tanks on that sort of D road to stop them at this point. So Utopia still pushing forward. And yeah, as you said, great bait on towards Hacky. And then they sent their entire force down towards the 8 lines. The setup is coming in here from Penta, but yes, they create a virtual overmatch because that IS-3 down at now C2 is out of position. So the quicker that Utopia go for the throat here, the better. And this might even teach Penta a lesson in proactiveness. And
one thing I think Penta has going for them, though, is that Hacky in that AMX-12T can just do whatever he wants. He can just come from behind. He can go any other direction. So far, he's just sat there. Obviously, he can spot a lot more, but I honestly think Hacky would move out of that position and maybe try and come from the hill or another direction.
All right, so the Dead Zone and Shukyu trading shots at range here. And he has to be very, very careful because there is that 5100 that's going to be looking at him from A0 in just a moment. Now, the base cap has started. Utopia are pushing their tanks up on towards that cap circle. And the rest of Penta are definitely just set up around the 3-4 line, waiting for a bit more of a committed push to come out from Utopia. This is a critical point for teams on the attacking side. This is often where games are won and lost for the team coming forward. What do Utopia need to do from here?
Utopia need to make sure that, first of all, the 12T can't do anything, so they need to lock it down with the MT25. They need to make sure that have every single angle covered, especially make sure that they got a tank protecting that middle area, that kind of courtyard area. And then they need to set up for this push, where basically Penta can just go straight across and overmatch around the corner, expecting Utopia to be kind of strawn out a little bit.
Here's that push here. Killer Pick on him leading the charge, but he's just going to be on his own for the moment. Takes 1 shot, takes 2 shots, takes 4 shots, takes 1,387 points of damage, and he will go down quickly. But here's the rest of Penta now pushing out. Hunter Sword is only still there because Shukyu went down before him. Shots now going down towards the street, towards Mac Money. A new multi-show is going to get chunked down as well. Have a look, though. Have a look over towards Bishu. He is now on reload. He has to back away from that fight. But Penta are beaten, battered, and bruised after pushing forward.
Yeah, they're losing about 1,000 hit points a second right now. Is really Messig's the only one in a decent position. Very, very bad execution there from Penta. And it's really left them without words as, well, really, Hacky's the only one doing any damage.
Yeah, Hacky now gets himself back on towards that middle road. He can't really contribute for the moment. But there's Hunter Zord and Mac Money pushing up. Messig is still in that annoying little position, but there's a tank. There's a 5100 there from Muka to take him out. Excellent adaptation from Utopia. Great flex. And now, of course, we see Raven HR hit the deck as well. 3 tanks remaining for Penta Sports, and only 2 of them are tier 8s.
Hacky in that tier 6, of course, but the Dead Zone Raging Potato trying to keep hope alive. Hope's alive for Penta, but Hacky caught between a rock and a hard place.
Oh, he's a lion heart if I've ever seen it. Hacky is going to try and take on those 2 5100s. He will get rammed to add insult to injury, and Raging Potato is surrounded, beleaguered, and he's about to drop. Utopia, great execution there on the attacking side. Penta really seem like they're lacking originality. They're lacking initiative, and they're lacking rounds as well.
Well, they're lacking a game there. They just lost 5-2. And really, that last game gave us a good indication why. Because, first of all, Killer Pit YOLO'd in on his own and got destroyed completely. I mean, you can't just go in on your own like that. Second of all, the execution was bad. I mean, why didn't Hacky just come in from behind? Maybe cause some of those turrets to turn onto him. Especially from the 8 line, screw the MT25 or take down the MT25 And then you can push around the corner. And in my opinion, that whole commitment around the corner with all your tanks is bad. I think you should split push a little bit with those 5100s.
Look at the damage count back. When you've got Killer Pit, who did 0 damage, and you multi-show on his famed 5100 did 0 damage. 2 massive tanks, 2 very big players for Penta, essentially completely nullified. There's no way they're going to win like that.
No. Again, bad game from Penta all
Here's
around.
The push.
Bad game from Penta. Killer Pit just gets obliterated, and then the rest of the team kind of come sidling in here. Message does a good job. He does the correct thing. He just pushes forward, so you can't get cross shots. Everyone else from Penta just really, really poor. And you know, Utopia, you have to give them credit. They're just doing such a good job. They look like the better team every single round. Even the rounds they lost, they looked like they had a chance of winning. So they definitely deserve that one.
And we were saying earlier on in the game, the numbers, at least, were favouring Utopia sometimes, ladies and gentlemen. The numbers don't lie. But that's game 1 out of the way. Game 2 is coming up very shortly, so don't go too far, because very quickly we're going to be back with No Mercy versus Supreme.